You're listening to the Snob OS podcast, the podcast for Apple snobs. Yo, this is Terrance Gaines, aka Brother Tech.
And this is Nica Montford, aka Tech Savvy Diva.
And welcome back to the Snob OS show, the show for Apple snobs, where we talk all things Apple and then some. We are back with another episode. This is episode 359 of the Snob OS show. And as per usual, we want to thank all those for listening for so long, and for those who are financially supporting the show. We couldn't do this without you. If you want to become a financial supporter, please go to patreon.com/snoboscast. Show us some love financially, and in exchange, you will get the show live, you will get the show early, and you will get exclusive content you will not hear on this week's show. Speaking of this week's show, we're going to talk about the new Apple CEO. We're going to talk about the blood oxygen sensor may be back. We'll be talking about the new Fold rumors. I saw some pictures out there. I'm not sure how I feel about it. We're going to be talking about Mary J. Blige still not feeling the Burger King commercial. If you know, you know. And I'm going to be talking about an update that you probably need to put on your device. So let's get right into the show. If you haven't, how's the phrase go? If you've been living under a rock, then you probably haven't heard that Tim Cook has stepped down, or has announced he will be stepping down as Apple's CEO come September 1st. There is a new sheriff in town. His name is John Terrance. He will be stepping in as the new CEO. Tim Cook is not necessarily leaving Apple. He is transitioning to the chairman of the board. He will be doing some things with Apple. He'll be speaking on Apple's behalf, and we'll be getting into that a little bit later. But I wanted to find out what you know about this John Terrance dude, and if you think that the ship is in good hands with this new guy named, well, not new. He's been with Apple since 2001.
Mm-hmm.
He is a hardware guy, so he probably fits right in. Well, actually, he was probably, instrumental in some of the hardware releases, probably during Tim Cook's tenure, i.e. the Apple Watch, i.e. all of the iPhone minis, i.e. the Vision Pro, i.e. the M2 chip. The M chips. So all those devices kind of came around during this John Terrance, as he was the hardware guy. So now he is transitioning into CEO. Wanted to get your input on what do you think about this guy, and how will Apple be post Tim Cook?
I think it's going to be interesting because he is a hardware guy. I think I saw somewhere posted that in undergrad, he made a robotic arm to help people feed themselves who were incapacitated. He did that, I believe, in undergrad. And so I think what putting a hardware guy in the CEO position, I think it gives us a couple of clues. I think it gives us clues that Apple is likely going to be focused more on hardware. I believe his title is SVP of Hardware Engineering. I believe that's what his title is. So it signals to me that he is going to be more on the technical side. I think he'd probably be more of a technical leader that understands the nuts and bolts of how products get built, how they get made, how they get designed, what people are looking for. And I think that's a good thing for those of us who like Apple products, because as we've mentioned before, the iPhone Fold, the Apple glasses, he's likely had a very strong hand in those two new products coming. And I think also what this gives, if you've noticed over the last few Apple announcements, he's had a really prominent role. A lot of times Tim Cook would come in and tee it up and set it up and then hand it off to John. And then John will, in most instances, bring on each of the different people, whether it be for the phone, whether it be for Apple Watch um, or AirPods, most of the hardware, he kind of introduces those folks in. And then, Tim will come on when they talk about iOS. He kind of tunes that in. And then, the OS people come in and do their thing. And then, Tim kind of closes it out. But if you've noticed in those last few Apple announcements, he's been, the guy you see right after Tim Cook, and typically the guy you see right before Tim Cook closes it out. And I think it's kind of been a slow walk to say, hey, this is the heir apparent. We are giving him the reins. And I can't remember what the other guy's name is. You've talked about him before, the silver haired guy. I think he
Craig
might have been,
Craig
is that what,
Federighi.
is that what his name is? That sounds right. If you
Mhm.
notice, both of them at one point had very visible roles. And I think they were trying to figure out who was going to be the heir apparent, and likely giving them the visibility, giving them the opportunity to lead, certain initiatives. And it looks like they settled in on Jared Terrance, and he's been, one of the main people that you've seen. So it'd be interesting to see. He's a relatively young guy. I think he's 15 years younger
I think he
than
said
Tim
he's
Cook.
50. I think he's
Hmm?
50.
Oh, he's 50. Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes right. Tim is 60 something. So yeah. Oh yeah, it says he's about 15 years Tim Cook senior junior. So it's one of those things where you're bringing in new blood. People are already familiar with him. They're familiar with his work. They're familiar with his voice and his, visual. And I think it's just one of those things where I don't think Tim Cook was likely ready to leave the helm, but I guess we'll talk about it a little bit later. But he's been really visible with this administration. And I think Apple is trying to change the narrative and kind of decouple Apple from, the visibility that it had with this administration. And I think taking Tim out of being the face and putting this new younger guy in place who people are already familiar with, I think that is one of the reasons why they've made this decision now.
All right. All right. I read somewhere that Tim Cook said he wasn't going to leave until he knew that the ship was in right hands. So John Ternus taking over as CEO must mean that I keep saying Apple, Tim Cook believes that Apple is in good hands. So we shall see. So moving on from John Ternus, we're going to talk about Tim Cook and his legacy. Like I mentioned, Tim Cook he replaced Steve Jobs as CEO in 2011. Tim Cook was a supply chain manager, so he was the one who oversaw all of the devices after they get made, how they made it across the globe and on to the shelves. So, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah. Tim Cook, I say he oversaw the iPhone, the Mac, Apple TV, and other critical products, including AirPods. What are some other things? The services. I think the
I
services
think the
really took
software is
off.
probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, he really took off under Tim Cook's tenure with iCloud and all of the family sharing services, Apple Fitness, Apple TV Plus, what's some other Fitness, Apple
Apple
Fitness,
Fitness.
all the things, especially AirPods, like I mentioned, that's probably a big thing as well. So
And I
all
think
that,
he was over with a lot of the continuity stuff we have now. That
right.
was kind of pulled in under him, and that's a huge feature. I know for me as an Apple user.
Yeah, just listing all the things that came out while Tim Cook was CEO.
Hmm.
So, like I mentioned, he is moving to chairman of the board. I saw something mentioned that he will be kind of like a liaison to like the any sort of world leaders, our current administration,
Hmm.
Tim Cook, talking about his legacy, as of late, people kind of gave him some, well, we gave him some what's a
Grief.
good word? Yeah, we gave him some grief when he was, you know, back and forth with this current administration. You know, he was doing that. You know, we know why he was doing that.
Yeah.
Nobody doubts why he was doing it. You know, he is a supply chain guy. You know, Trump was threatening tariffs, 25 this, 30% that. You know, Tim Cook, as the CEO, took it upon himself to make sure he had some sort of relationship with Trump in order to dodge a lot of the tariffs, which some will say he did. You know, it would be remain to see if he would have, if Apple would have stood their ground, if those tariffs would have went through anyway. You know,
Mhm.
dealing with Trump's famous or infamous, nickname Taco.
Mhm.
Just looking at the Iran war, all of the on again, off again, on again, off again with this war. It was the kind of same thing with these tariffs, on again, off again, on again, off again.
Mhm.
So it remains to be seen. All that to say, it remains to be seen if Tim Cook or Apple would have stood their ground against the tariffs, that they would have seen those tariffs in the first place. But can't leave that up to chance. So Tim Cook felt and did what he felt like he needed to do. As chairman of the board, I assume there's going to be more of that, to where he's being a liaison, reaching out to different leadership, like I mentioned. So
Mhm.
we haven't seen the last of Tim Cook.
No.
It'll be interesting to see what's next for him beyond, or his I'm at loss for words today. His influence, at Apple post CEO. So we shall see.
Yeah. I think I think with Tim Cook, he had a really good run, and for the most part people liked him. They liked what he brought to the table. They liked, to an extent how he navigated um Apple. I think he had an overall positive, um if you want to use political terms, approval rating. But I think he took a hit when he personally donated to this
Hmm.
administration, when he kept showing up, even when all of the things were coming out about this current president and the people that were in his administration. And I think even with all the good and all the positive stuff that he's done, I think tying himself so tightly, as you mentioned, we know why he did. And we know he greased the wheels, giving him like little gold trinkets, basically kind of placating a child, to cooperate. You have a child having a temper tantrum, you offer them, a lollipop, or you offer to take them somewhere and they calm down and they acquiesce. So I think that's what was expected of him as the CEO. But I just think visually, knowing that this current administration, he's an adjudicated rapist, he's a 34-time felon, he's twice impeached, all of this negative stuff. And, Tim Cook, Apple made the decision to kind of tie their horse to him. And it took some shine. I know, at least for me, it took some shine off, Tim Apple, as the current, president called him. And it made me look at him a little bit differently. And I don't think I'm the only one. I think a lot of people thought Apple was a very progressive company. Tim Cook being in the LGBT community, a lot of the climate things that Apple has done, a lot of the inclusivity, the data protection, all of those things that are usually good for the people. And then, tying yourself so closely to this administration for whatever reason he ultimately did it for. Whether he agrees with them, whether he doesn't, whether it's for business purposes, whether it's not, whatever the case may be. In any event, it took some of the shine off Tim Cook, and it made Tim Cook, to me, look bad. It made Apple look bad. And I think this is their reset. They had, like you said, a supply chain guy. That's what he did. He knew how to move products and keep things in the pipeline. And I think, to me, with John Ternus, it feels like they're going back to being a tech company. They're putting
But
a tech leader uh, kind of in place and going to leave Tim. in that role of, you know, meeting with not only this administration, but, leaders around the world to make sure things kind of keep going. I think to me, it feels like a reset to put a different face on it, to try and, slide Tim Cook off to the side to be able to do the things that they still need him to do for the business end, but kind of, to me, make up for some of the maybe some of the ill will that people have, or some of the side eye
So
that
are you
people
are
are having.
are you
Yeah.
speculating that Tim Cook stepped down because he ruffled some feathers by pon- um Jesus Christmas catering to this administration in face of tariffs?
Honestly, Honestly, I think so. I think like I said, I think he probably could have stayed, and it probably would have been relatively fine. But I think, how what they're saying on the internet, the saxophones are playing as the saxophone are playing at Boys in the Hood when Ricky is running from the gun shots. I think he could likely see there was some dissension. The saxophones were starting to play, and it's like, hey, let's get out of in front of it. And I think him being the businessman that he is, he could see the writing on the wall as well. He could see that the sentiment had changed as well. And especially you tie in the issues that they were having with Apple Intelligence. And it's like, okay, let's do a reset and let's try and right the ship, and get us back on some good footing. Again, we're Apple snobs. We know a lot of people who are Apple snobs who aren't going to go anywhere. But again, Apple has had the reputation of being one of the good ones, so to speak. And I think some of that shine was coming off, and they, probably made the decision to pull the trigger a little bit sooner than they were actually anticipating. Maybe they know something that we don't know. Maybe there are some things going on behind. Well, I know there are things that they know that we don't know, but maybe it was, a little bit louder than we as consumers knew. That's what I think, because again, this seems kind of, it doesn't seem complete out of nowhere, because I want to say we talked about this either earlier this year or the end of last year, and this guy's name came up as being a potential replacement. I thought maybe another 5 or so years. I didn't think it would be this quick, um, for them to announce it and then for it to happen. It's happening before we even have the September announcement. So he's not going to have one last, you know, um, uh, Apple event. He's done with the Apple events at this point. Unless, I think WWDC will probably be that'll be his swan song. That'll be his, going out. But as far as talking about hardware and introducing it, I think he'll probably do the proverbial, handing over the reins at WWDC. And then, he'll probably do some things leading up to the September event. But I think WWDC is going to be his swan song, and he'll be around, but I think he'll be more in the shadows, so to speak, and making things happen behind the scenes that we don't see. We meeting the consumer.
Yeah, Tim Cook being 65, I just think he was tired and ready to go.
Oh, really?
I don't think Apple Intelligence, I don't think the, backlash or the bad press came as a result of him and dealing with this administration. I just think dude was ready to go. He's been he's been CEO of Apple since 2011. You know, Yeah, I just think I just think he's like, you know what, man, I'm ready to go. Let me go now. Now you're right. I'm pretty sure that the rumors started swirling and people started inquiring more into his upcoming retirement as a result of Apple Intelligence issues and any sort of dealings with this administration. But, the fact that he's not doing the Apple event, well, we don't believe he's doing the Apple event in September, leads me to believe he's like, look, man, you got it. And to me, it kind of makes sense that the CEO of the company does the fall event, which is their biggest event.
Mhm.
There's nothing, even WWDC is not as big as the September event. And I think they wanted to make sure, him shadowing or learning from Tim Cook or whatever the case may be. I think they wanted enough runway, which is why they announced it now, but it
Mhm.
won't take effect until September. That gives them what, 5-6 months
Mhm.
maybe to prepare, and his coming out will be the fall event, right?
Right.
It makes sense to me, but I
Yeah.
just wanted to get back on to Tim Cook. Even though he's stepping down as CEO, like we mentioned, he's going to be chair of the board, and there's probably going to be more of him kind of rubbing elbows with
Mhm.
leaders. I just want to read this passage from Macworld. It says, sadly for Cook, then the very first worst part of his job, meaning rubbing elbows with the administration, is one that he has to keep doing for at least 2 more years. No longer will he direct product strategy. No longer will he appear on stage of keynotes. Instead, he gets to spend all his time on call for the next presidential meltdown, ready at a moment's notice to stand behind the lectern and put on a serious face while a man rants about sharks and windmills. It's almost enough to make me feel sorry for him until I remember he's a billionaire and he certainly doesn't need the money. So hopefully Tim gets to ride off into the sunset and not be a babysitter. But since he has already created the relationship, I'm pretty sure Apple wants that to continue during the next meltdown, like the story mentions. So,
I
uh,
will say, I'm gonna jump in there. What if this administration isn't going to want to deal with Tim Cook anymore because he isn't the CEO? We all know how titles and visibility for this current president are
mhm.
very important. He wants to be seen with the main guy, with the person who makes a decision. I'll be interested to see if he still wants to keep that relationship with Tim Apple
he
or if he wants to talk to the newer, younger, hipper guy.
Now Tim Cook is a celebrity, and I don't think that's going away by him stepping down as a CEO. And I think Trump loves celebrities
Okay.
more than the actual leaders of the company, right? We
Hmm.
don't know who this John Turnus dude. Well, the public doesn't know who this John Turnus dude is. We know who Tim Cook is, right? And I
Right.
think that is why Tim Cook is going to hang on and even be more influential than previous CEOs of other companies who stepped down. When other CEOs from other companies step down, they kind of like just go off, right? And
Hmm.
do their own thing. He's staying on as chairman of the board, and he's going to be this quote unquote liaison. So I think Tim Cook being as influential as he is,
Hmm.
the next time Trump starts tripping, I'm pretty
That'll keep
sure.
that'll keep Trump on the hook for with Tim.
Yeah, I'm pretty
I
sure he
can see
will.
that.
All right. So, like I said, shout out to Tim Cook. Hopefully, congratulations and much favor in future endeavors and all the good stuff.
He had a good run.
Yep.
And again, like the article said, he has a ton of money. So does he really care?
Right. Right. All right. The next thing I got a little piece of news. The Apple Watch blood oxygen sensor ban is over. The federal court dropped or said they will not be hearing the U.S. International Trade Commission up where's it at? The International Trade Commission said they will not be hearing any more cases from Maximo, or Maximus. Is it Maximo or Maximus?
Massimo.
Massimo. They have decided they're not going to hear any more cases against Apple in regards or in relationship to this blood oxygen sensor. So we shall have to see when. I haven't seen anything as far as when the blood oxygen sensor will come back on the Apple Watches. I think the Apple Watch Ultra 2 and I want to say the Apple Watch Series 9.
9.
Yeah. In January 2024, Apple began selling the Series 9 and Ultra 2 without the blood oxygen sensor, a policy that remained the norm until August 2025. And we know about Apple's workaround, and so on and so forth. So now with let me just read this part. The ruling terminates the case, which means Apple can now sell models with a redesigned blood oxygen sensor in the United States. It's not clear whether Apple will continue to roll out an update to allow existing Apple Watch wearers to see the Oxygen 2 readings on their devices themselves, or whether this ruling only will change future devices on sale in the United States. So basically, the workaround was we can see the blood oxygen sensor readings on our iPhone. Now that's out. Time will tell if Apple will roll that back to the Apple Watch for the Ultra 2 and the Series 9, or will they wait until the Apple Watch 10 and the Ultra 3?
So, see, I thought that because it was a hardware component, they left it on the watch. They just turned it off. I didn't realize that it wasn't on there. I thought the sensor was on there because they had already started making the watches. And I thought they had just turned it off. I didn't realize that they'd taken the sensor out. I thought it was just turned off and you couldn't use it.
Well,
And that's how they did the workaround.
Well, they say it's not clear. Like I said, it's not clear whether Apple will roll out an update to allow existing watch wearers to see the sensor, or will they just wait and reintroduce it with the next line. You're probably right that it's there, and they probably just turned it off.
Yeah, because
But
they'd already started selling it.
right. But will Apple go through the effort to turn it back on, or will they just wait?
Okay.
I think that's what remains to be seen.
Now, if it's about money, then they'll be like, oh, it's on the new, they'll sell it as a feature on the new Apple Watch to get people to buy it.
Mm-hmm.
Or if they want to say, hey, you already have it on your watch, we're just going to turn it on for you too.
It would make sense for them to tout it as an additional feature in September or October, whenever they announce the latest Apple Watch. Makes perfect sense. We are so used to not having it on the device. Well, we're so used to not being able to see the readings
on the
device that waiting a couple more months to see them re-announce it in September, and then also say, oh yeah, it's also available for these past devices on iOS 27 update, whatever the case may be. So we'll all get it at the same time.
Yeah, unless they say, okay, we'll turn it on, but it's not as accurate or it's better with the new chip. They can always have marketing people to kind of make this all, sound kind of great. It'll be interesting to see what route they ultimately take, because like I said, I could have sworn that they had already started selling these things when this company came out of the woodwork, and then they had to turn it off. But I guess they'll eventually tell us if they want to, go back and use it on the 9 and the Ultra 2, or if they just going to put it on the new ones or not.
Right. All right. Well, that's all I have for the lowdown. Moving to second string, and the rumors have been going crazy about this new iPhone Fold or iPhone Ultra or whatever they're going to call it. Maybe a couple weeks ago, I saw a Oppo Find N7 that, in my opinion, is
the one you showed the video on.
Right, which is, in my opinion, what I think the iPhone Fold should resemble or imitate. There's a new rumor mill out that Apple is working on more of they call it a passport fold, that's a little shorter, a little fatter when it's folded up. But then when you unfold it, it kind of, instead of folding out like a book, you kind of fold it up. And when you fold it up, that's when it has
it's longer like a regular phone.
Right. And evidence of that is Huawei has just launched the Pura X Max. The first phone that, again, it's folded into a regular phone. It looks like a little fat passport. It looks like a passport, the size of a passport.
A passport book.
Right. But then when you fold it out, you don't kind of fold it out like a book. Kind of fold it up, and then that's what has the bigger screen. The whole reason why I'm putting this out here is because I have seen dummy molds, and what those molds are is they make those molds and they send them out to accessory makers. Like if you want a protective case, screen protectors, any sort of docks, any sort of MagSafe stuff, they send out these dummy molds to the different, brand makers, third party makers, and that's what they use to design their accessories. What that can do is also give us a peek or a hint into what the design of the latest iPhones are going to be.
Mhm.
So this leak that we got from, I'm reading is from Mac Rumors, but they say leaker Sonny Dixon recently shared images of the first iPhone 18 Pro, iPhone 18 Pro Max, and the foldable dummy models. The images conform with rumors about the design of the three devices and provide a very first real visual confirmation of how they look.
Mhm.
And I'll make sure to put a link in the show notes. But if you look at these pictures, they have, looks like a iPhone Pro on the right, an iPhone Pro Max on the left, and in the middle they have the Fold, which looks like a short and fat iPhone until you fold it out and then you get the bigger screen real estate. The reason why I'm saying this, because if it looks like this, I'm going to pass. I'm going to pass on the Fold. I'm just not used to that short, fat look or feel of a phone. Again, I've never held one in my hands, so this is just going off of me looking at pictures. But if this is
It
what
looks
it looks
kind of
like,
funky because it's
yeah,
wider and it's
right,
shorter.
right,
I
right.
think the width is what's really like
Hmm.
throwing me off. The
Yeah,
dimensions, because it's just like, how am I supposed to hold this now? Even as not even as a flip out, but as
hmm
just as the phone. Like you're used to kind of a certain grip. Now your grip, I don't know. Mm.
yeah. I'm kind of thinking about it from a standpoint of
Can it fit in your pocket?
if you're on a phone call, how does it look? That's what I'm thinking.
Oh.
most people have the AirPods, or there's some people still out there rocking the wired, headsets.
Hmm.
So you won't look any different because most people are either using AirPods or headphones or whatever the case may be. But if you do
Mm.
have to hold it to your ear, you know, I mean, I guess it's just vanity. I
It
just
is,
don't like. I
but
just
when
don't
you're
like.
spending this kind of
Uh,
money, obviously vanity comes into it
right,
because this is a thing you don't leave home without.
right,
Even up to this point, if you leave home without your wallet and you need to run out somewhere, you're fine. You could
right.
still manage. But this doesn't. I don't like the way this looks. I already
Yeah.
wasn't too fond of the idea of a fold anyway,
Hmm.
and just seeing this, it's like, again, you said it's short and fat.
Yeah.
I think it'll look weird kind of closed.
Yeah. The foldable phone is expected to feature a 7.8-inch inner display, which is the one that folds out,
Mhm,
with an iPad style 4:3 aspect ratio, 5.5-inch outer display, the part that you see when it's closed,
mhm.
an ultra thin 4.5 millimeter titanium frame, a class leading display with a reduced crease, Touch ID, and a starting price of around $2,000.
They want you to pay $2,000 for this
If
passport phone.
if it looks like that and it costs $2,000, I am out.
Oh.
You would really have to sell me because again, I've still got my 16 Pro Max. When the iPhone 17 Pro and the Pro Max came out, I was like, I mean, it looks you can tell there's a difference because they got those funky colors. I've got a
Mhm.
space black. They came out with a dark blue and they came out with that orange color.
Orange.
Outside of that, phone looks kind of the same. So I was like, you know what? Let me keep my money. Let me keep my money in my pocket. Let me keep my phone. But my phone I have now is starting to show its age. I'm starting to care less about the screen. I don't have a
Mm,
screen protector. I don't have a case. My phone is just butt naked and I can see the scratches are starting to show up on the screen. So I'm
mhm.
ready to
Yeah.
upgrade to a new phone. And if this phone looks like this, I will, again, never say never. But I mean, this thing would really have to wow me for me to get something that looks like this. I ain't saying it's ugly. I'm just saying, do you really have to sell me on this one, Jack? All
I'm saying it's ugly. I don't like it.
right.
And I already had a negative opinion anyway.
Hmm.
Had this image came out and it had the same dimensions or damn near close to the current iPhone. I get, they may have to take some liberties, but this is obviously, different.
Mm-hmm.
If it was like closer to what the iPhone looks like, then I still wasn't going to buy it, but I'd be maybe slightly more impressed. But I think the thing is, thinking on the product side, they likely don't want it to look exactly like the iPhone because it kind of takes, I think, to them
Some
on the
shine
product
away.
side, it's like it kind of takes away from it, and people won't know that you have a fold if it looks like the regular iPhone. So they have to make it a little bit different. But I think that's stupid. But that's just my opinion. I'm not the product manager, so I don't get that say. But yeah,
At,
I'm not
at two
impressed.
at $2,000, man, this thing better. I mean, it better do some things for it to look like that. All right, so that is it for second string. We're gonna move into for the culture, and if you are not a '90s R&B fan, you probably never heard or never even cared about this Burger King commercial. It was in 2012, and Mary J. Blige was singing this song about this. What was it? Crunch
Snack
wrap,
wrap,
snack
snack
wrap,
wrap.
snack wrap that they were selling. And she sang this song,
Red,
and she was in this
red,
commercial,
red
and
chicken.
we laughed and laughed and joked and joked. It was just a weird commercial if it was to be serious, right?
Yeah.
Because I think that is the issue. Fast forward to 2026,
Mhm.
and during an appearance on the Scott Evans podcast Guest House,
Which is really
released
great. It's
18,
a really great show, by the way.
right, released April 17th, the RB icon revisited the 2012 campaign and made it clear time has not changed how she views it. Basically, she says, I'll just quote, the whole way that shit went down was wrong. The whole way they shot it was wrong. She said the campaign she originally agreed to was far different than what viewers ultimately saw. The singer
Uh-huh.
also pushed back on the idea that enough time has passed for the incident become a joke or a meme. When Evans asked whether she could laugh about the commercial now,
Mhm.
Mary J. Blige answered bluntly, no, it's still not a laughing matter to me. She added that the backlash affected her far beyond the headlines, especially because many of her longtime fans were confused about what happens. And she says, quote, my honest to true fans did not think that shit was funny. Blige said, I was deeply, deeply affected. Um, One of my, not a pet peeve, but one of my things that bothers me about people is that your inability to laugh at yourself,
Mhm.
right? Again, I'm not a super famous R&B icon.
Mhm.
I don't make any money off my name, image, likeness, or talents.
Mhm.
So I can understand how image is everything, especially in the age of the internet and the age of social media, because this commercial came out during the height,
It
almost
was peak
right,
Twitter, peak internet, peak social media before
right,
what we have now.
right. And the fact that she is still bothered by this, I don't know, not necessarily rubs me the wrong way, but I'm like, huh, it's been over 10 years from now.
It's like
And
50,
as
going on 15.
And as silly as that commercial was, how can you not look at it and just laugh and be like, "Man, that was that was
That was wild.
that was a
I
time,
was
right?"
bugging.
Right. I was bugging, right? But it still bothers her, and I'm curious. My question would be, what did they record that made what we saw so different that she is still bothered by this? Because according to her, what she shot and what they pitched was not what we saw. I have a hard time believing that
Mhm.
because you sang the song, you did the lines. How did you think they was going to turn this around? So that's kind of what I wanted to get your opinion on.
Yeah.
What could she have recorded, or what would they have pitched to her versus what we saw that still has her so butthurt about it.
Right. So I get 2012. Um, we were a community that um, President Barack Obama was in his second term. There was a whole lot of Black excellence talk and like even more of the whole respectability politics. And if I'm remembering when it came out, the one of the issues were is that people thought it was borderline what do they call it?
A skit.
Uh, um uh Minstrel.
Minstrel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
minstrel.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying
Mm-hmm.
to think of, I don't know if it's minstrel tea or whatever. Back when they used to have Black people shucking and jiving,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, boss, and
Mm-hmm.
have you with the
Mm-hmm.
over exaggerated features, and it basically played into the stereotype that Black people were dumb and were just used for entertainment, and
Mm-hmm.
the things that we did weren't seen as complimentary. They were seen as being less than. So
Mm-hmm.
I get that during that time frame and where we were as a society, like I said, Barack Obama was in his second term, all the respectability politics, all that stuff. And she did get a huge backlash. People talked a lot of cash shit about her in that moment. And I get that. And Scott's Scott Evans' show, they like to kiki on that show. It's a
Mm-hmm.
very fun, like they have some serious moments, obviously. And I think when he went to bring that up, because
Mm-hmm.
it has now, that song now has become a cultural phenomenon. Back then, it was like, ooh, but now it was like, oh, it's fun. Everybody singing fresh chicken. They do the dance, they do the song. And I think he was ready to kind of kiki about it. And she
Mm-hmm.
was like, nah, this still messes with me. And I guess I can understand why she would feel some kind of way still. And at the same time, I don't know if it's because people do stuff even worse than this,
Mm-hmm.
artists, Black people, and, nobody, thinks anything about it. But back then, I guess it's kind of like two minds. Back then, she couldn't have got away with it. Now she could have. And it could be because she could be thinking, when I did this, it was so bad, but now people do it. And, nobody, blinks at it. Or, I can laugh about it now because people are doing what I was a trendsetter. I was doing it before people, was doing it. But it seems to really still bother her. And, that's her right. But, people at this point, it's a joke and it's funny. And maybe that's what she takes offense to, is that people treat it as a joke now when it was so serious before. But to me,
Was it so serious before? I mean, the way the commercial came out, I cannot, and again, excuse me for being small minded. I cannot figure out what the video was really supposed. If she's saying everything was wrong, this is not what we were supposed to see. They played in my face. What was it supposed to look like? That.
I'm wondering if she thought that, because in the commercial, somebody's ordering and
Mm-hmm.
then it pans to her and she's standing like on a table in the restaurant
And she
singing the song.
she interjects. She interrupts them from ordering something.
Right, so she could explain what it is. And
Right.
she's standing on the table in the middle. But my thing is, and then I think it was another shot when she was more like in a club vibe or like on a stage. But my thing, it still doesn't change the fact of the song.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think people had a problem with the visuals. I think people had a problem with the song because of, the way she was singing it down, about this snack wrap. And people, I think, were like, why are you singing so hard about this snack wrap? But, to me, it's one of those things where she, this isn't the thing that I would be offended by
Mm-hmm.
or be embarrassed about or still mad about. The thing that I would be mad about if I was her, I don't know if you remember, I think it was when Hillary Clinton was running for
Oh, that
president.
she was singing
And
to Hillary
they
Clinton.
were doing an interview and she started singing the song to Hillary Clinton, who was, running for president and doing
Uh-huh.
interviews about becoming president. To me, that's much worse.
Mm-hmm.
Much worse than this commercial, which we know you're selling something, you're selling a
Mm-hmm.
thing, you're supposed to be a little bit campy. But
Mm-hmm.
sis, you are sitting with former senator, former secretary of state, current frontrunner to be president of this country as a first woman, and you singing a song while y'all just sitting there in like in like club chairs in an
This
interview.
awkward song.
Awkward.
Um, so I maybe I just chalk it up to there are just some people who take themselves
Way too
seriously
seriously.
all the time.
Yeah.
You know, maybe people closest to her know she can be silly. You know, maybe the people close to her know she can be humorous. I have never seen Mary J. Blige just kind of goofing off, you
Yeah.
know, off camera, on an interview, on a red carpet, in a movie, in a show, in a whatever. It's always super, super serious.
Yeah.
You
That's
know,
true.
maybe she takes herself that
Maybe
seriously.
that's that New York attitude she got, or the
Maybe,
way she grew up, came up. She was, drugs were a big part of her life. Abuse from partners is a big part
sure.
of her life. Poverty, of course, growing up, all those things. And maybe it just gave her a tough shell that she doesn't present to her people in her life, her friends, her family. Sure. But her forward facing personality. But again, you sang the song,
Right.
you
And
knew what was in the song. So this wasn't a serious song. It was a light, buzzy kind of song. So how you
if
can
she,
still be
yeah,
mad at these people when you're the one who sang the song, girl? I love
yeah,
you, Mary, I do, but you sang the song. You recorded it. You in the
yeah.
studio, you recorded it. Even outside of what they said you did, what you were expecting the commercial to be, you still got into your merriness, your
Mm-hmm.
hair, your makeup, your outfit, and you got on a stage with the microphone and like did your thing. So I don't know how you expect it to be different, girl. I don't know.
Yeah, I just think even when she's doing her concerts and she's doing her merry dance,
Mhm.
it still looked like she'd be trying to perform instead of being goofy. I would think by now we have
Evolved
imitated. Right, well, we have imitated her dance when she does her concerts or whatever.
when she
So
does the
much,
kick and she
yeah.
does the
But
with the boots. Yeah.
even after that, right? And then she
Mhm.
does it. It still looks like she is like, I'm out here trying to perform
Yeah.
versus like, I'm gonna give y'all what y'all
We're
came to
having
see,
fun. We're
this
gonna
goofy
laugh.
dance,
Yeah.
right?
Nah.
She taking it
Straight
all
up dead
seriously.
serious.
So maybe everybody ain't got funny bone like that. Maybe she ain't got
Maybe.
one. So
And she ain't got one.
mm,
But again, the Hillary Clinton interview, that's
right,
what I'd be upset about.
right. All right, so that is going to do it for the culture. We're going to move into the hookup, and my hookup for the week is a security update. iOS and iPadOS 26.4.2 is out, and the reason why I wanted to put this in the hookup is because I read a story. Of course, Apple doesn't give you the specifics, but I read a story on CNET that kind of gives you a little peek into why they released this update, and
Mhm.
specifically why I want you to update this. So I'm going to read this quote. Apple released a software update on this past Wednesday for iPhones and iPads, fixing a bug that allowed law enforcement to
Mhm.
extract messages that had been deleted or disappeared automatically from messaging apps. This was because notifications that displayed the message's content were also cached on the device for up to a month. So, according to the CNET story, this iOS 26.4.2 fixes that issue so it secures your messages to where, if for whatever reason your phone is taken by law enforcement, they will not be able to view those cached messages. So, that is my hookup for the week. If you have an iPhone and really ain't trusting the cops like that, the present company included, I highly suggest you download iOS 26.4.2 that patches a bug that allows law enforcement to view cached messages on your device. So that is my hookup for the week. And Nica, if you don't have anything else, that's going to do it for this week's show. So please tell the folks where they can find you.
You can find me at Tech Savvy Diva everywhere.
And you can find me all over the internet at Brother Tech. That's BROTHATECH. To connect, comment, share, and support the show, please go to snoboscast.com to get all the details there. And until next week, we are out. Peace.
Bye, everybody.